on the wrong side of my floor. My clothes still smell like the night before. Where am I? Why am I talking to myself? I'm like a fat kid running through a candy store. I'm like an info surrounded by a bunch of whores. Why can't I just get control over myself? I'm not trying to be a saint, I don't wanna be president someday. I'm just trying to make my way. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, I can't do nothing right. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, it ain't no one's fault but mine. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, I can't do nothing right. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, so if you fuck up all the time, let's all sing. It's my bad, I never said I ever get it right. A girlfriend told me that she wants a break, and that being with me is what turned her gay. What's with me? Why does this happen all the time? I'm like a blind man walking through a perfume shop. I'm like a black guy stitching in front of the cops. Why can't I just get control over myself? I'm not trying to be a saint, I don't wanna be president someday. I'm just trying to make my way. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, I can't do nothing right. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, it ain't no one's fault but mine. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, I can't do nothing right. I'm sorry, I'm a fuck up. Yeah, so if you fuck up all the time, let's all sing. It's my bad, I never said I ever get it right.
What's up, guys? Dark Saint here, bringing you a special video on The Division and how to play The Division. Now, whenever I say play The Division, I don't mean, jump in there and start shooting stuff, use cover. Those are kind of general rules. So, it is an RPG. It does require you to use a lot of cover, and using cover helps you stay alive. It's a good thing to do. It's also a good idea to run with a good set of team players, people that you can work with, and people that you get along with. Making friends in The Division isn't always easy, so, bringing some friends from some other games that you've played before is normally a better idea, mainly because you can't ever trust people that you meet in The Division. You never know when they might go rogue on you, so good luck if you do find some people, good on you. But basically, I'm not really wanting to talk about that. I'm more wanting to talk about the mechanics of the game and how they affect your build. The first thing we're going to go over is going to be firearms. Now, firearms does more than just affect your weapon damage. Obviously, the higher your firearms, the more damage your weapon does, but it also affects how much damage your grenades do, which a lot of people don't know. If you throw a grenade, the higher your firearm skill is, the more damage your grenades will do, and also the more effect your bleeding effect will have. If you ever throw a grenade, it lands at your feet and it blows up, you'll have a bleeding effect. The higher your firearms is, the more damage that bleeding effect will do over a longer period of time. Now, I say that, but it's really kind of based off proximity. If you're really, really, really close to the grenade, then the bleeding will last longer. So I don't necessarily know if firearms will affect how long it lasts. It just seemed that way whenever I was doing my test. Could have just been that I was a little bit closer to the grenade than I was previously. Either way, it does affect how much damage the bleeding effect does, and it does affect how much initial damage the grenade will do. The last thing was also the bullet types that will affect you. The bullet types being your explosive bullets, your fire bullets, and stuff like that. The higher your firearm skill is, the more damage those also appeared to do. And I say appeared because, again, it was hard to really test this, given the limited numbers that I could actually use. Basically, trying to give you a short version of it. Let's say that I had a weapon that was doing 100 damage points. If I added a bullet type, it was doing about 120 damage. This is just an example. Then, if I went and I upgraded my firearms to a higher level, now my bullets were doing 150 damage without a bullet type attached. And then whenever I did attach a bullet type, rather than doing 170, kind of going from 100 to 120, it would actually go all the way up to like 180, 185, maybe 190. It did look like it was an increase to damage, but I don't know if that might have just been a percentage. I don't know if firearms works off of a percentage based. So that was the situation I ran into with that. But overall, your firearms basically affects how much damage your player can do without using skills. This does not affect your skill damage in any way. It only affects your weapon damage, your grenade damage, and the different bullet types that you use while using those weapons. Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about is going to be stamina. Now, stamina, I really couldn't have played with. Some of this stuff's kind of random, and a lot of it's kind of opinionated. I won't say it's completely opinionated. It just, from my opinion and from my use of increasing and lowering stamina, these are the results that I kind of saw. Okay, I don't know if it's just me. It could have just been, hey, I got a lucky roll in, whatever. It's really hard for me to justify the combat roll and the combat run and the dodge roll. Basically, a combat run is anytime you get engaged in combat, whether with the AI or with another player. Once the combat is engaged, you will have a different type of sprint. You will run a little bit differently, and you run a little bit faster while you're able to get away. The other thing I noticed is your dodge roll. You're able to dodge back and forth. I think that you can dodge faster with it. At least it felt like that whenever I was doing it. And of course, the last thing is your health. We already know that the higher your stamina, the more health you have. The more health you have, the more bullets you can take. So the more stamina you have, the more health you have. It's a good basic knowledge. So the last thing that we're going to touch on is going to be skill power. Now, from skill power, this is where it really affects more of just your skills, obviously given the name. First thing we're going to notice is that it does affect your medical healing abilities. We tried it at a very, very low. It didn't regenerate much of our health at all. We tried it at a very, very high, given the same health points that we had, and it regenerated almost all of our health. Now, it might not seem like it always affects you directly. Like, if you equip it and you're noticing, hey, it's not really giving me that much more health, it might be because you just have so much stamina. If your stamina is really, really, really high, it's not based off a percentage like your med kit is, which we'll go over that in a minute. Your healing ability is a set number. It is set off of your skill power. It is not a percentage. It does not mean that if your skill power is over, 1,000, that you're going to do 100% of healing. It could be 75% of or it could only be like 7,000 points of healing. It will not be 75% or 80% or 90%. It will be a set number. Now, if it fully heals you, it fully heals you, but that doesn't mean that it's 100% heal. It just means that the number of points of health that it gave you is greater than the number of points that you were missing. That's how that one works. The next is the scan effect. The scan effect is, if you ever do your scan, it makes it to where you do more damage, or it makes it to where you can see the enemies through walls longer. You can shoot them through windows. It's a good effect to have. It's a good idea to always have somebody on your team with the scan so that you know if people are coming after you, if you're rogue, or you're just trying to look for people in general, or if you're looking for other rogue agents and seeing where they might be running to. It's always good to have someone with the scan effect on. The skill power affects how long that scan effect will last. The higher your skill power, the longer the scan duration. The longer they'll stay red. The longer your ability of the scan will last. The more damage you'll do to them. The next one is your tech skills. This both affects your sticky grenade and your turret. Your sticky grenade will obviously do more damage. At the beginning of the video, you saw one of my introductions. I hit a guy with a sticky grenade and it completely wiped him out. Yes, he was slightly damaged, but it completely wiped him out. I mean, it just drained him completely. If your skill damage is low, then you might only take off maybe a third of the guy's health and break him into the second bracket, which is fine. It depends on what you're relying more on. At the beginning of this, I was running a jack of all trades, but we'll go more into that later on. The other one is the turret. It does affect how much damage the turret puts out as well, and it appeared to affect the accuracy of the turret as well. I know when I first got the turret and I threw it out, I was like, wow, it's not even hitting the guys. I mean, it's shooting at them, but it's not even hitting anyone. It's just spraying all over the place. It caught their attention, but what good did that do me? Yeah, taking the attention is a great thing, but we'll go over that again in a minute. But as it got stronger, as my tech skills got more powerful, I noticed that the turret was doing a lot more damage, and it seemed to be a lot more accurate. It was hitting a lot more of its bullets than it was previously. It was just like locking on to them. So I'm sure that could have just been me, could have just been good luck on that specific enemy type, or it could have just been that close. But from my point of view, it looked like it was getting more accurate at hitting the target the higher it was. Don't know if that's true or not, it just seemed that way. Could affect the distance of how accurate it is at a longer range over time. So if I'm shooting at someone, or if the turret's shooting at someone over a long range, the skill power might affect how accurate it is at that range. So the last one we're going to talk about is, of course, the riot shield. We didn't really get to work with the security class at all during either of the betas, but from looking at the riot shield and taking it in against AIs and using it against other people that we just, would leave the team, turn around, shoot our ally that had a riot shield out, we saw that the riot shield was able to take more damage. It just didn't seem like a dramatic amount. But again, we were also limited in the amount of power that we could give to our skill power. So we know that it has an effect. The magnitude of that effect is still yet to be seen. We'll see more once we get into the end game and once we're able to actually use the skill power to its full potential to see how much this riot shield can do. I mean, if you make an invincible wall, you make an invincible wall, and that would be great for your team, especially with the other abilities that are coming. And I would really like to play around with the security. I know the walls seem irrelevant most of the time, but there are a few alleyways and corridors where straight lines of sight, no cover, a riot shield could end up being very, very useful, especially if you get a portable wall that you can throw out and set up. All right, something else that I want to touch on besides your skill powers and your security and your tech and stuff like that, we want to look at your in-game builds. Now, there's a lot of different builds out there in the game that a lot of people don't realize just because we've played the beta. Okay, and this is just something that I've playing around with different skills. And we already know we can have like a super, super, super high damage output with firearms, and we can set up a super amount of health and just be a tank and just absorb a bunch of bullets. And then we can also have a good security system, good skill powers, good healing effects, stuff like that, using your skill power. So then it comes down to in-game builds. Will Jack of all trades be a good build at the end game? I don't think so. I think that Jacks of all trades will be obsolete, that there will be no reason to run Jack of all trade builds. The reason I say that is if you're running solo, it's not necessarily a bad idea. It's just one of those things that if you're Jack of all trades, you're master of none, meaning that you won't have as much health as somebody else does that's running full tank. So if you're going into a gunfight with somebody that is nothing but firearms and stamina, you're probably going to lose. Yeah, you might have skill powers that are slightly stronger than his, but if your skill power isn't enough to take him down, then you're back to firearms. And if he's able to outdo you in firearms, then you're going to have bigger problems. So I think that as a team, you might want to run a different setup. So you have, your first is going to be your head tank, your lead tank, like your mega tank. Okay, and there's more than just one type of tank, but your mega tank, the guy that you're wanting to put out the most amount of damage and be able to resist the most. That's going to be your tank. And for that build, you're going to want to run firearms at a max and health stamina at a max. You want to max those out as best you can. Don't ignore skill power because you might need them with the turret. The turret is what I would recommend for the lead tank, not for damage output, but for the distraction of it. You throw it out there, and it's very easy to distract AIs. It doesn't necessarily work on player versus player, but it is a great idea for other things. Like distracting enemies and being able to get the drop on them because they will shoot at that turret like no other. It's crazy. I wouldn't really worry too much about your health. Maybe your scan might be useful. Stuff that you only need it for a couple seconds because you're not going to have a high skill power. You might not really want to go for your turret or your sticky grenade or anything like that. The next build is going to be your medical build, and that is going to be a high stamina, high skill power. You're going to mainly work on skill power. You want your health thing to be able to heal as many points as you can. It is not a percentage. Something I will tell you is the med kit is a percentage. It's 40% of your health. After a lot of testing, regardless of where my stamina was at, whether it was really, really low or really, really high, when I used it, it always regenerated 40% of my health. It wasn't 33, it wasn't 35, it looked around 40% of my health. Even if I had really high health, it seemed to regenerate exactly 40% every time. Didn't matter what my skill power was or anything. So it doesn't seem to be affected by any such sort. Med kits regenerate 40% of health, regardless. So, however, like I said before, the healing effect does not. The healing effect is different. It affects a point base. The higher your skill power, the more points of health that it regenerates. So, if you're running a medical build, you're going to want to go high skill powers and high stamina so that you can take a lot of bullets. Good thing to do if you have a lot of rogue people running around you. You can actually make a medical a tank for kiting people. People can sit there and try and shoot this guy, and you can sit there and do dodge rolls. It'll be really hard to hit you. Two, even if they are hitting you, you're going to be able to take a lot of bullets. I don't know if you guys have ever chased after a rogue agent that was, one, just outrunning you all the time, or two, he just had really good bullet sponge abilities. You could shoot him in the back forever and it just would not kill him. It's probably because he had a high stamina build and he was just able to outrun you. And really, when you're playing solo, that's what I would recommend, is a high stamina, high skill build, using your turret to do most of the damage rather than yourself. Eventually they're going to die anyway, so having a turret isn't a bad idea, and running a healing ability to be able to heal yourself while running solo is a great idea. So that's the build that I would recommend for running solo. The next build would be your glass cannon type build. Now, glass cannons are going to be the type of build that you're going to want to run if you have a good team. You're going to need a good team, like an extremely good team, because you're going to be at a high risk. It'll be a high risk, high reward situation. It's one of those things that you can run directly behind the lead tank that's hopefully able to take most of the bullets, and you're able to run in behind him and give him excellent cover fire. The two perks that you're going to want to work on here, one of them is going to be firearms, and the other one's going to be skill power, ignoring medical, or stamina, sorry. Now, ignoring stamina can be really bad, one, mainly because you're not going to have a lot of health points, and you're not going to be able to move very quickly. But that's not your purpose. Your purpose is being able to put out a lot of damage. Now, you can run up front with your tank, but I would honestly, thinking about it, I would probably run sniper build. If you have a high sniper, you sit back in the back and hang out with the medical or whatever. The issue with that is, you don't always have good lines of sight, so running a LMG or something like that as a sidearm would be a good idea. Point is you're able to put out a large amount of damage with everything that you have. So running, the sticky grenade or the turret with flaming abilities or whatever else they may introduce into the game. Like I said, we haven't been able to use all of our skill powers and everything, but the idea is no matter what, you're able to put out just a ton of damage. You're able to drop enemies very quickly just off of damage alone. You just pretty much ignore health altogether and just pound on them with your skills and with your firearms and your snipers and whatever other weapons that we may see in the future of this game. And that would be your glass cannon type. Able to put out a lot of damage, but not able to take a lot of damage. The next one would be your skill type tank. Rather than going firearms, you would go skill. Now, skill type tank wouldn't be very much different than your medical, other than your medical would be relying more on the skill to help it do the medical, but at the same time having a lot of stamina to keep up and be the last man standing. Your medical, it's got to be one of the guys that's standing. So your tech tank needs to be able to put out a lot of damage, and it could also work as a medical, but you really want to focus more heavily on skill power than you normally would. Just like the firearm tank or your lead tank, he's going to worry more about firearms than medical or your health. So, whenever you look at it like that, you really have to focus on that primary thing, on firearms. If you're taking away from firearms, then are you really making a tank build class, or are you just trying to kind of make a crossbreed? So I really recommend going all out into one thing. I really do. Having a secondary is fine. Having something to support you is fine. But if you're looking for the maximum damage output and the maximum builds, especially if you want to do a lot of damage to, like, you know, whatever kind of bosses we might have to fight, and really being able to drop some of these sponges that you guys don't like fighting. You're gonna have to, you know, knock out some firearm skills and some skill points into something, and normally that means sacrificing something else. But you don't always want to sacrifice stamina. The only person that you would want to sacrifice stamina is probably going to be your glass cannon. The other ones, they can sacrifice it a little bit, but not so much. So, to try and give you a general idea of what you're looking for in these 4 builds, is you have your lead tank, which would be an S in, you know, firearms, and a B or an A. Really kind of pushing more towards a B in health, okay? You don't want to take too much away, but at the same time, you don't want to worry so much on that you're taking away from your firearms. This guy is your main tank. So an A or B, depending on what kind of armor you can find, is what you're looking for. Maybe get some high defense there as well if you can find some high defense type weapons. Next one's your medical. And this guy's going to be A and A on both medical and on your skill power. I would say S in skill power, but you're probably not going to be able to get an A and an S together. That's why I was also saying that about the tank. Making an S just means that you have everything that can possibly go into it. Every piece of armor that you have is going into that build in some way. Okay, so that's what makes an S. An A would be that you just got lucky enough to where all your other abilities also lined up with it, which would make it very difficult to do. I mean, it's rare that you're going to find every single armor piece you have be in both those fields. You know, a lot of armor pieces do have more than one type. You know, some, especially during the beta, only had one type, but you could find some that had 2, like 1 firearm and 1 health, and they had like plus 30 and plus 30. And you could also find a holster. I know I found a holster, it was plus 30 in all 3. It was great. Anyway, your main objective would be an A in recovery, maybe a B, and an A in skill points. So, sorry, I said recovery, I meant stamina. So an A in stamina and an A or better in skills, because your skills is where your healing ability is going to factor in. So you really want as much into that as you can. You can also use that for your scanning. That's who I would make your scanners, your medical, both running medical and scan. It's good, you know, tactical choice to have. Next one is going to be your glass cannon. Your glass cannon needs to have an A in firearms and an A in skill power. Maybe, you know, don't worry too much about your firearms because that's what your lead tank is for, and kind of focus a little bit more on skill power than firearms, because some of these skills can do a lot of damage really fast, unless you're running like a sniper and you can get some headshots in there, and then of course you're going to want to go with firearms. It depends on what you're using, what kind of weapon you're wanting to use. If you're running LMG and wanting to run this class, then you're probably going to want to go more into skill power. You want to get that turret out there, let it take up some of the bullets, but at the same time dish out a lot of damage. So that's what I would go for with that, and that's your choice. The next one and last one is going to be your tech/tank. And that's going to be a B in health and an S in your skills. It's very similar to the medical build, but at the same time, you're going to want to focus more heavily on your skill, not for medical reasons, but for combat reasons. You can run a medical, or you can swap to a medical very quickly if you need to, and that's completely understandable and why people would want to do that. But at the same time, you also are more focused on putting out the damage more than you are worried about healing allies. You have another person for that reason. And you can mix and match this as you see fit. If you want to run 2 tanks with some high health and then run a medic or 2 medics right behind them, that wouldn't be a bad option as well. We'll really have to see what the game holds, but those are the different types of builds. I don't recommend a jack of all trades because you're going to be beaten in one of the categories. Jack of all trades means master of none. It's just a good rule that almost every MMO follows. So, alright, for this last part, I'm going to make this very brief, but just giving you some good hints, tips, and cheats included. Hints, always try to run, especially in third person, at a higher sensitivity. Not at 100, but at about 80. Something quick enough to turn around. Somebody gets behind you. You're going to want to be able to turn around and shoot them. So that's always a good thing to have. The next one is, this one's kind of a dick move, but if you ever see anyone with a sentry gun out, if you ever go up and you just kind of pop them with your pistol, not enough to go rogue, but enough to have the sentry gun turn on you, the sentry gun will actually hit you and cause him, and if he's in a team, his entire team to go rogue And that could be like a real easy way to get a lot of money and a lot of points. It's not cheating, but it's a really big dick move. Now this one is cheating, and I am going to say that I don't condone cheating. I think this is kind of fucked up, and I hope that they patch this soon. But if you ever really need a lot of money or a lot of keys very, very quickly, especially when you're first going into the Dark Zone, you want to get your hands on some, have a guy leave your team and just you and him be by an exit or by a spawn point where nobody else messes with you, and sit there and kill each other back and forth and keep going rogue, get all the way to max rogue, and then kill each other. You get a lot of keys and a lot of money very, very quickly doing that. So either way, that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'm going to go ahead and play some music, let you guys continue to watch the last bit of this gameplay. I hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys like the video. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will read your comments. Not very many people leave comments on my videos, but you know, I'm a small-time YouTuber, so whatever. Hate me if you want. Either way, if you guys don't like me giving the hints and tips about cheating, well, whatever. It's just me. Either way, enjoy the music, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Confirmed. Rogue status no longer active. Leaving contaminated area.